Hello, so we're going to make a building in 3dsMax using this plan to create a line structure and then extrude up into the third dimension. The plan has been created on a square canvas. I cropped it 1:1 and just dimmed out the intense white of the background so it works on the basis of a white display line for the splines that we're creating in the first instance. Okay, so hopping over into Max, just before we go, by the way, this white box here is show off, which reveals what keys are or buttons on the mouse and keyboard are being used at particular times. So I'll be using a fair amount of keyboard commands rather than the sort of point and click or menu options where I know them. Okay, so kind of when you're stepping back through the video, have a look at the show off panel here to help with what's going on at any particular time. Okay, so let's put this into Max now. Okay, so here's Max. You've got to check your customize that your unit setups are for 20 centimeters. Sorry, the unit setups are for centimeters. So 1 unit equals 1 centimeter, and your display unit scale is metric and centimeters as well. And this is because the many different applications for models you might make they're using kind of real world sizes. So although this might be heading for a game engine, it's one that uses real world sizing scale of objects, so that there's no kind of measurement difference, scale difference between the real and virtual worlds. So I'm just going to maximize or at least greatify the top viewport because that's where things are going to start from. Okay, right click to make that the active viewport. So we need a plane, and we're going to grow it in this viewport. And I've guesstimated the building is about, by looking at doorways and the scale of fitments like baths and where they're showing kind of chairs or whatever. So it's about 15 meters across. So I'm going to go with 1500 centimeters. So actually the kind of the reference plane that has the image on it that's guiding the shaping is also containing kind of the scaling information for the object that we're going to make as a result. So we're using keyboard entry, not vital for this particular project, but it's a super habit to get into. It means everything you create, you kind of understand its size and how it might need to have its pivot point located for placement in the virtualized environment. Okay, so yeah, wherever your pivot point needs to be, use keyboard create as a way of getting that established. Especially if it's kind of the center of a regular shaped object, you can use these settings here to offset the placement as well in particular axes. So that's my plane. I need to map the image onto it, but I won't see anything if it's in wireframe. So if I go default shading and then F4 to turn on edge display, not needed for this plane, but once the object is being made, we need to see clearly where there are edges built onto it. Okay, so there's the square plane, and so if I map a square image onto it that's cropped to its borders as ours is, then all's going to be well. So I'm going to make a material, M for the material editor, and drag out a physical material, and then drag out a bitmap and drop it onto base color work map, and then go and find your bitmap. Okay, which is house dimmed. Okay, so that's connected up. I just need to assign it to the selected object, and we're done with that at least. Okay, so for this object, I don't want to see these lines across it, actually. But what I'm going to do in any case is freeze it so I can't accidentally mess it up with my line drawing activities. So here we go. So in plane 001, in the display properties, down here, take off show frozen in grey, and then I'll right click on it and freeze it, and that means I can see all the stuff on it, got no edge lines in the way, plus I can't accidentally choose it or edit onto it with my line work that's coming up. Okay, so if I go to this front viewport and one more thing. No, actually, no, I don't need to do this. So I was thinking I might just kind of move the plane down a bit and maybe leave a bit of space between, but now I've frozen it, it should be fine where it is. Okay, so working in the top viewport, we'll go to the Create tab, we'll go to Splines, leave that setting Splines and do Line. Okay, so I'm going to pick around here and not do any dragging, because dragging will make curves. I just need only straight lines. So I'm going to map out where there are doorways with a vertex and window holes as well as I go around. Okay, so I'll click, release, and then move downwards. Now I'll have to go zoom out a bit and then zoom in a bit to the next point. Now, rather than just kind of hit and hope and judge it to be more or less straight, you'll get kind of rendering issues if you leave it to chance. So don't leave it to chance. Hold the shift key down as you get near to your destination. Click, hold the shift key down, click and release. Release the shift, release the left mouse button. Cursor over to the next point, click on the shift, click down where the vertex should go, back on the shift again, click down, back on the shift, click down and then zoom out, and we're going to this corner here. Don't need to zoom in that close. As long as I keep my shift going every time I want to click, then I'm getting properly aligned results. And every point along this set of walls, how far do I have to zoom out? There we go. It's because the zoom is sort of tracking the cursor position. Okay, then we go to that point there, and then to that one there. Here, there's a lot of kind of tall, narrow windows, but we're just going to do map over the whole. Stretch. The show off will as a kind of limitation for how long it will spend. So if I'm hovering around a lot, it will stop showing you that I'm pressing the shift key when I am, nonetheless. Now, at this point, I can kind of just zoom in and make sure I keep. Okay, no matter how accurate I think I'm being, and kind of mapping across in the image and saying, oh, it's around about there, we can have greater accuracy. So when I click that one down, now when you want to bring your line over and get these close, see how kind of close I'm not. If you are accidentally really close, you'll get asked if you want to close the spline, because we want these verts to be exactly on co-located, or at least as much as we can. So because I'm a distance apart with my zoom, I can't really, I'm not getting the close spline nag or suggestion. So as you can see, there's some distance between these. Now what I want to do is move the verts around until they can meet up at a point, but what I don't want to do is move them in a direction that's not the line that's already coming from them. So it's actually a segment in sub-object terms. So I'm going into modify line but vertex sub-object. So this one I want to move, so W to move just in its linear axis, and just zoom in. I'm using the scroll wheel to zoom, of course, and there'll be a point where I can zoom no closer. So this one next, and you keep zooming them in until that's it. There's the limit of zooms. So if after you reach a point where there's no more zooming to be had, that's kind of as accurate as it can be. However, if you've got snap-on and you're putting vertices down in particular increments, you've got a kind of conflict there with the plan. The plan might suggest one thing, a particular location you needed, and your snaps will lock it into another one. But if you can stand a kind of really small amount of snap, like sort of 5 centimeters worth, you'll probably find you can get a really accurate line and get them to be exactly spot on at this corner point. And that would make things a lot more, just making sure that there's no more zoom to be had. Let's drag into the middle, yeah. So when I drop this one down and make it as close as it can possibly be, yes, and there we have it. Okay, so we have our completed line. Oops, not that one. That one. Okay, so I've filled up the viewport with the object. Okay, so now we need the kind of killer feature of Max, which for this type of work at least is the outline. So we go to spline mode, select our spline, and although this feature is called outline, it, with a positive value like let's say 30, and hit return, it nonetheless produces an inset line. So this is slightly different from scaling. If I'd scaled it, certainly around this centre here, this wall may have kind of ended up intersecting with that one. So with outline we've got a completely even wall thickness all the way around, plus reproduce these vertices exactly kind of parallel, if that's the right word, with the existing ones marking out the window frames. So we've got nice kind of straight wall edges potentially for any windows or door frames that we create. Okay, so now we've got a line which is 2 separate splines. So we want to join these together. And quick and easy way to do that is go modifier list and cross section. Okay, that's worked well. So at this point we've still got the modifier. Let's boil this down, collapse it 2, and now it's editable spline. Let's see if we can and then put the surface modifier on. Okay, now here is a setting you want to watch out for. If you've got a curve profile anywhere in your splines, then the steps will probably really enhance that. But if you need to make sure you don't generate excess geometry, then that setting would probably need to vary downwards somewhat. So just in case it affects things later on, I'll set that to 1 step. Which is maybe one more than we need, and any kind of further details I'll need I'll add by hand, maybe with snap-on in a project I wasn't demonstrating. I'd sort out some snaps for that probably. So let's see if we can collapse all. Okay, now it's an editable patch. Now here I want to make sure that my steps are kept low. For when I do the next step, which is convert to editable poly. Okay, so even though I set it down to 1 and I've got these extra edge loops here, I don't really need them. To be brutally honest, the last time I tried setting steps down to 0, I had a crash, so I'm not going to risk it. I will live with those. It's not a massive amount of extra detail. Okay, so now we've got an editable poly. The thing to do is start considering the vertical dimension. And so we are done with the top viewport for much of what follows. So in the perspective viewport now, we have our editable poly. It's fully selected. It's just checking. I could see, because it's actually in the same place as the plane with the image on, it's not displaying all of its surface in some angles or views, and if I orbit a bit, you can see how it's kind of working it out, sometimes to be the object, sometimes to be the plane. No matter, we're going to move into the third dimension. So we go polygon, Control A, and we could also use an extrude modifier for this, but extrude within the sub-object will be fine. Okay, so we're extruding upwards, and we've got to think of a kind of reasonable height. We could be thinking in terms of setting different levels of extrude just for the bottoms of window sills, the tops of window frames and door frames. But a better way of thinking really is to, if you know some measurements for those things, that's great. But a better way is to think, well, what's a reasonable height for a level of a building? And I think 3 meters will be that. So I'm going to type in the centimeter version of that. And leave it at that. That's a result that we wanted. Hit the tick. Now, if we wanted a multi-story building, then we just need to extrude up another 3 meters. 300 centimeters. I'm not going to do that here because it's going to make some of the next bits kind of awkward. So we'll pursue the brevity option here. F4 on the keyboard, just to show all of our lovely edge loops. Now we've got a doorway there, and so looking at the area carved out for the doorway, which is these two wider polys here, my kind of proportionate brain judges the following approach to swift looping around. I suppose I could do it in this viewport to see kind of how where the swift loop is occurring. But if I do it on this one, so I can see where it's working, and then kind of keep an eye on what's going on here, is probably the better way of looking at it. Okay, so I'm swift looping the top of doors and windows in this move. So swift loop is under Edit, and I suppose I could put snap on and sort of fix it at particular increments. So about there. Okay, and then I'm thinking about kind of picture windows, type of property it is, so a fairly low windowsill, you can sit down and see a good bit of terrain around you, so there for the bottom of windowsills, and we're done. Okay, so the next thing is we need to start removing some polys for windows and doorways. I'll kind of do a couple and you leave the rest to your kind of interpolation. So I need to go for Q, which is select and do no transforms while doing it. Okay, now if I start deleting polys here, I've got to choose. Alright, I've got to choose some other approach, which I'm going for that lazy one. So you can spray choose, although I don't know if there's been for a few versions now, Max has not conformed to request. Do backface culling. Okay. I might try working in this viewport anyway. Okay, so shift, shift, and shift, and that's that one. Hit the delete key, and there they are gone. Now you can see we need to do the same markup with swift loop on the inside, but at least now you can kind of see where it should occur. So I'm going to choose a window frame here as well, and the purpose of this is really just to define areas for infill, because where I'm deleting the facing polys, there's going to need to be some infill here, and the method for that will be the bridge tool. So let's go see-through, which will, so Alt X-ray, that will allow us to see where there are kind of corresponding points on the other side of the model. So I'm just going to orbit round. And kind of get almost a horizontal angle, but of course I do need to make sure I can actually reach the area I'm trying to get with my swift loop. So edit swift loop, and then there's the line I'm sort of meeting to, which I'm going to cover over the one on the outside exactly with that click. And then the same thing for the bottom edge of windows. And here's the one where it kind of gets a bit tricky there, because you're trying to look at the bottom line without sort of obscuring the view with some near wall. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so now I can delete the corresponding polys on this side. So I go for Q, just to stop the Swift loop. It's a right click if you're feeling less lazy. So these doorway polys can go on this side. So dit, 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 hit delete, and then that one that side as well, hit delete, and now we can see we've got an open space. So the problem is, and it's easy to fix on the window, problem is we've got these open areas here, like we can see inside the paper thin walls. So what we want to do is, I'll take back face off because I want to be a bit lazy, and select that border there. So the definition of a border is one or more connected edges which only have polys on one side. Okay, so the quick and dirty fix for that is bridge. Now this has worked because it's a border all the way round. For the doorway, I'll have to be a little bit more kind of progressive. So what have we done? We've added one segment with no taper. That one, bridge borders smooth. Okay. Bias, haven't made it more one side than the other, and we haven't twisted it, and we haven't done a second twist on it either. So very much the vanilla bridge, which is kind of what we want. So for the door, let's try border selecting with the door. Now I say let's try. What's going to happen is the border will continue all the way around the bottom of the building, because that's what there is. I'll just check my mesh, and let's turn off that tray. Okay, so we're in border mode. So there you go, like I said, so we don't want to cover over all of that. That's just produce a load of faces that we don't need to do anything with. And because we're sort of thinking about a game application, we're thinking about laying out the surface texture, we don't really need to do anything with that unless the building starts flying and we can see it's the bottom of its walls. So I'll undo that selection. So there's a bit of a hand pick thing going on now. So we go edge mode, and you can do double click to select whole runs, but then that gets those edges there. So yeah, hand picking as we go. But once I've hand picked, I can, so I'm holding control to add into my selection, and they don't have to be done in the order they appear. You just need to make sure you don't include any gaps. I'm going to maximize the viewport and just get around and about. Ooh. To make sure I've got them all. So I reckon I should have 12 selected edges. Oh, got a 13. Right, I better check my work out. Someone's got to do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, as it should be. And again, don't rely on your own. Oh, there it is. I must have accidentally got that one over there. So I'll Alt click that one away. There we go. Yep, checking your work out, orbiting round, all good stuff. Keep doing it. So let's try bridge now. Yay! So just checking there. I'm presuming that's just a shading thing. It's not the inside of the wall. But the simple way is it's selected. It's there. Okay, so cool. Okay, so rather than extrude up kind of multiple levels and then have to pick out each window, if you've got the same pattern of stuff or similar, it's probably as quick just to clone this and then stack it on top. And any other differences you can create either by infilling windows where you don't want them or making more where you do want them. Okay, so that's this bit of the process done. There you go. Building from plans. I'm sure there are more complicated buildings where there's a lot more stuff you need to do, but kind of that's the basics of the approach that will work within 3dsMax. If you found you've got a lot of edges that you don't need, or you want to get rid of the runs of edges full stop, so for instance this edge loop here, so if I go edge mode, double click that whole ring there, what I want to do is get rid of them but not leave a kind of hole because the polys that are attached to them. So if I hit delete, that's what happens. Undo. The better way is to look for remove. So there's remove there. So remove. Remove's okay, but look. So we've still got the verts there. If I change the display colour for my object, you'll see the verts are still there. So it's kind of good, and we could just do remove on those verts, but it's a bit of a pain having to track all the way around for that whole loop's worth of verts. So I'll undo the remove on those edges there. Change the colour for contrast. Go back to edge. Okay, so let's try right click and there's remove. Now if I hold control down, I think I'll get what I'm after. Okay, so back to vertex and there we go. Okay, so you can work around selecting loops by double clicking and do control remove to do that. Okay, that's the end. Thank you for watching.